Yeah. We're talking about sleep divorce, which is it's a new term for sort of an old concept, which is basically a couple sleeping apart.
Yeah.
Now it could be for any number of reasons.
Like my grandparents when they each had their like
They
tiny
only-
twin
or,
beds with like a electric
or,
blanket. And
Desi and Lucy. That doesn't ring any
I
bell.
used to watch.
I love
used
Lucy.
to watch Lucille Ball in.
So remember their, or
yes.
is it their bedroom that was separate beds, or was that Ozzie and Harriet?
Now that one I didn't watch.
That was before my time, even before my
Okay.
time. Does anybody know?
No, I Love Lucy. Did they
Was
have
it separate beds?
I don't know.
I think they did.
Yeah.
They
I
did.
Love Lucy, yeah.
So
Okay.
back in the old days.
As did my grandparents. But yes.
Yeah. So
Well, on one side.
and there are there are many reasons to think to do that. Do you have twin beds in your bedroom? Two separate twin beds?
Definitely not.
So it's a little. And I Love Lucy? They did it because of sort of norms and chastity, and like they didn't want to stray.
When we moved to a king bed, I was like, God, you're so far away.
a lot of space,
yeah,
right?
I was like, it's too much space.
Yeah.
But
So So the number one through 10 reasons for sleep divorce is snoring, and
slash sleep apnea.
Slash sleep apnea. Well,
Yes.
and then everybody who has sleep apnea snores. Not everybody who snores has sleep
Right.
apnea, but the annoying sound of somebody snoring or them trying to die, hundreds of times every night. That's annoying.
Yeah.
If you're sitting there and somebody's trying to die next to you, you're like,
Yeah, it's
I gotta, either they gotta die somewhere else, or I'm gonna switch beds.
Very
Right.
true.
But some people think it's cool. Like some people think it's like, oh, it's the new, hip thing. Is like the separate bedrooms. I think it would still be uncool to have twin beds in your luxurious master suite.
2 bathrooms I'd be cool with, fine.
Yeah.
But
the
one
bed, yeah. Anyway, I'd say that sleep divorce concept, it's sort of, if the cause for the sleep divorce is snoring, shouldn't the cure for the sleep divorce be addressing the snoring?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
That's not like rocket science.
No, and also we're kidding about it, and it's true that some people laugh about that, but others are like, patients can be pretty disturbed by
Sure.
the fact that they're sleeping in separate rooms, and like their goal might be, I want to get back in the room with my spouse, and I'm like, and I empathize with that. Like I feel that and want to help them there,
Sure.
like because I think about like, hey, if I slept in a separate room for my wife, like,
Well,
that's not what I would want or signed up for.
and if even relationships are a work in progress,
Absolutely.
they're challenging.
Yes.
You think it helps the challenge or hurts the challenge? Here's my take on that. Those that would spin the sleep divorce thing as a positive are folks that are saying this relationship is challenged enough that we cannot have this snoring thing in the mix. And so the solution is you guys work on your relationship, yet sleep separately, and then you flip that around and you're like, well, when did you start sleeping in the same bed to begin with?
Right.
And why did you do that? And the likelihood, the guarantee that started with a relationship that we don't need to get kind of hokey or too deep on it, but it's a relationship that started separately, and part of that was coming together, and so there was a time. So when you grew up, you slept in your own bed by yourself, right? I would imagine.
Correct.
Right.
Yes. No. Yeah.
So
I did.
and then as time moves forward and you become an adult, and then that switches around, and then
Right.
for many folks these days, it's kind of going the opposite direction. And I don't, and I would say, does it? I don't. It's do what you want to do sleep wise, but if it's happening because of a medical issue, which snoring is, address the issue. Is what
Right.
I would suggest that versus
Yeah.
getting a separate room and a separate bed. Is why don't you just think about
Save the cost on furniture and take care of your
take
snoring
care of
issue.
right,
Right.
right.
I completely agree.
What's
Yeah.
the counter argument to that?
There isn't one, unless you're using it as a reason to get out of the bedroom.
Right.
And that's a whole different
It's a whole
story.
different thing.
Yeah,
But
and we're not necessarily marriage counselors here, and so
No.
like, it's more of, hey, if this is a goal that you want to have, don't let this stand in your way. We can address it.
yeah, and we can address it in a low key fashion too. I guess
Yeah.
we're not talking like massive, sort of hurdles or challenges.
When's the last
they
time
go
you did
through.
big throat surgery?
Yeah.
Or how many in the last year or two?
It just doesn't happen.
Right.
And so that's where I think people, I think the other part of the problem as far as the sleep divorce thing is people equate snoring with, if I go to seek out treatment for my snoring, I'm going to get a CPAP machine, and everybody I know who has a CPAP machine hates their CPAP machine. You know, that line of thought,
Yeah.
which is unfortunately the common thread. The common thread anywhere other than typically practices like ours is you go to your typical doctor with snoring, and unfortunately you're going to be, that game is rigged, and yeah, they're going to hope that you have sleep apnea so they can put a CPAP machine on you. And it's not a good
Well, it's
game
because the
to play.
majority of those people end up at a sleep lab that really the only treatment option that can be offered at that sleep lab is a CPAP machine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just interesting to pull patients occasionally when they come in and say, hey, just out of curiosity, and these are ones that are on a CPAP machine that are maybe looking to get off, did you even know an oral appliance existed? Or did you know that there were these other options out there? And the answer is always no.
Right.
No one ever talked to me about this, or no one offered this to me. It was just like, hey, here's a CPAP machine, this is a way to address your issue.
Right.
And so we talk about that a lot, that, you know, it's about options, it's about patients understanding that there are multiple options out there. You know, because somebody may not feel all that excited about getting back into the bedroom and then having a CPAP machine on their nightstand, right?
Right.
And so, and that's real.
Sure.
And so there's other things that people could do.
Yeah. Yeah, and they don't, I guess the challenge is they don't know that, and then therefore
Yes.
they say, well, no, that seems hard. It's not hard. It's not hard because I guess I'd say, at least from my vantage point, we're aligned with the goal. The goal is, you know, well, let me go first. I mean, if somebody has snores or sleep apnea, it's coming from the throat, period. That's where that issue is coming from. And so if that's not being addressed by a throat specialist, then that's the first misstep that's happening
Right.
there. And if it is, and at least with us, it's trying. There are certainly there are times where CPAP is the best option for somebody if they have sleep apnea. But if there's an alternative that's less cumbersome than that, then that's our typical approach. If it's reasonable, and so it's dancing that dance of trying to do the right thing, and then, you know, understanding that the right thing. It's an opinion. Like, what's the right thing? Well,
Right.
the right thing depends on what your worldview
and
is.
it's a personal preference. You know,
Yeah.
that's why I think Advent's is much about, you know, part of our own mission is just public awareness.
Mm.
You know, and trying to reshape the conversation around, like, what is the option and what's not, because there are multiple options, right? So again, it's a matter of what's a patient's goal, what are they interested in. Advent can provide and discuss all options with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you walk the path you want to walk.
Sure.
You know, just with eyes open. That's all.
Right. Yeah. Although, and then I would say, if how do you say this? If what you want and what your body is are not in agreement,
We'll be honest with you about
we'll be
it.
exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
which is all that we can do. I guess at the end of the day, you know, it's not about. It's about awareness and options
Right.
and solutions. It's not about trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. I mean, by any means, it's just really trying to make sure that people understand. And so the reality is that, you know, millions of people choose not to do something about these issues, and that's just wrong. I mean, they do that because there's not really a choice. It's not a fair game. It's not a fair game when you're a pawn in a game where there's no good move to make. You can't go one way or another, because you think you're going to get kind of eaten up either way. But man.
Right. I mean, you know, I could imagine that there's got to be a lot of resentment that might build up between that.
Sure.
Also, you know,
Absolutely.
because, you know, let's say it's husband who snores, sleep apnea, noisy, wife doesn't, can't sleep, gets upset, you know, angry, not sleeping well. We know that sleep quality means it's hard to be awake during the day, you're more irritable. There's all these other things that are involved in that. And so how do you not hold that person responsible for an issue that maybe they're trying to address or don't know how to address?
Sure.
You know, or, hey, I tried that CPAP machine and I couldn't hang with
Right.
it. You know, and then it's because, well, it could be because your nose is really stuffed up and you can't breathe through your nose and you're kind of been screwed that way for 20 years, you know? And so maybe that person generally wants to make a difference and make an effort, but doesn't know how, feels trapped, spouse upset with them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine that's a challenging place to be in. you know? And so the more we can get people breathing better, sleep apnea handled if needed, whether it's an oral appliance or CPAP machine or whatever the other options are, you know, can make marriages happier and just have people, you know,
Sure.
enjoy the time they spend together more, I would imagine. So
Yeah. Who does need to leave? What's the judgment call? So if you have a snorer and a non-snorer, who has to leave the bed?
that's a good question.
I don't know.
You know,
What's the right move there?
whoever gets kicked, whoever feels.
Well, I'm
motivated.
trying to think of how.
You know, what if it's the dog? Then what do you do?
Yeah,
You know,
but
And
I don't
what
know
if the dog
who gets
came
the
as
couch.
part of the marriage. Yeah,
I think the
don't know.
couch could be that. I guess I'd say that might be a good barometer of somebody's relationship. I guess is it the true or false? Is the person who leaves the bed, is the person who stays in the bed the person who's actually wearing the pants in the family? What do you think?
That's a good question. I don't know. Because the person who leaves the bed might just feel so bad about their own snoring and self-conscious that they're taking the lead to get out of there. Or the opposite.
Or the opposite. I don't know. I've not thought about that. I'm trying to think about
How often
that.
have you been kicked, you know, or rolled over?
You talking to me personally?
Yeah. For making any sort of noise.
I'm pretty quiet.
Okay, fair enough.
I've thrown some elbows.
Right. Okay. All right. Also to keep in mind is there are other variables. You know, anybody who likes to have a glass of wine in position, and there's other
Sure.
things that play a role. Certainly, these things too. So.
Who would leave the
to
bed
be
in
fair.
your household? Who's leaving?
Neither of us have. We will battle it out until the end, which is embodied by my son. We're both very stubborn, so I'm not sure who would leave.
Gotcha.